Excuse me, madame, but would you like my penis in your vagina?
Oh my god. Oh god, that's going into the first part of the crack.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly hard to find a good butt.
Oh, really?
What constitutes a good butt?
Look up, see, if you just look up butts like that, that's what you're going to get. You need to look up, like, nude poses and stuff, like something more artistic where people are, like, standing and stuff like that instead of being like,
Porn.
you can't see what I was doing.
Damn it.
Now, actually, I'm wondering what would turn up with a query like standing butt.
Standing butt. I got two decent butts.
Counterposto bottom.
Contraposto bottom. Yeah, that's what actually that's one of the butts that I picked, the contraposto bottom.
There you go.
Wow.
That's your butt. Enjoy.
Hello everybody, welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is QUACKCAST number 420. 420, which is a significant number to some people for some reason.
Because it's Hitler's birthday. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. So, this is the Drunk Duck QUACKCAST. I have the inimitable Baines. Hello, Baines.
Hello. Don't imitate me.
The Tance with the amazing hair. Hi, Tance.
Hello, carefully.
And our amazing Pitface, who has grown her hair and is no longer like the character I changed it to in Pinky TA. Bugger you.
You'll never catch me.
Exactly. So, we are talking about taking substances and its relationship to creativity in this world. All right, because there are a lot of associations with taking substances and what it does to creativity. But before we get into that, I have to bring up the feature. QUACKCAST has given us a feature this week. It's Generation Y, which is, oh my god, this is a feature I'd had on my list for ages. I've been wanting to get into it, and Quai did it. And yeah, thanks Quai for doing that, because one of us had to do it, and I'm glad that, you did. So thank you. It's a great comic. Okay, so take it away, Kai, with Generation Y.
Hello, this is QUACKCAST, and the feature I've selected for this week is Generation Y by Aya Luna, and it is rated E for everyone. Shinji Desmedi is a shy, introverted student, unlike his very social sister and loving father. He has a very difficult time looking up once he lets his gaze down at school. One day he is approached by a girl who misreads his inability to engage in conversation as a rejection, and he is ostracized by his peers once again. He tries to take out his energy in a healthy way, but instead dwells in all of the negative words and put-downs. That night, Shinji walks in on his dad outraged over a young man who he believes is going to do something terrible one day. The next day at school, Shinji encounters the young man at his school campus, even though he is not a student. Should Shinji be concerned about his unknown visitor? Generation Y is drawn in a black and white manga style. It is meant to be read from right to left in order for the dialogue to make sense. Find out more about the mysterious boy that crossed Shinji's path and read Generation Y by Aya Luna, rated E.
And that was QUACKCAST with Generation Y. Thank you for that, Quai. Okay. Next up we have the music. Gumwalls has given us the theme to Cosmos Song, which is a comic by... Okay, Chance, could you say Pei for us?
Hey.
Pei.
Okay. Yeah, back.
So, this is the comic by Pei. The comic is called Cosmos Song. It's been featured before on the QUACKCAST, and we even interviewed Pei about it a long time ago. But let's talk about the bit of music that Gumwalls has given us. Ice-cold stillness of eternity, glittering sparkles reflected in an oil-black sea of immeasurable depth. Ripples spread outwards, one after another. They collide and combine, distorting the reflections till they die and all is still and calm once more. So, take it away, Gun Wallace, with the theme to Cosmos Song. And that was the theme music. Thank you, Gun Wallace. The theme to Cosmos Song. Gun Wallace's music to Pepe's comic. Pepe, you should have a little read of Cosmos Song, as well as Generation Y. Okay, substances, guys. QUACKCAST 420. I thought this was a cheeky subject to do. So, all right, we talked about this in the video, which, you guys, please become patrons, and you get to see these videos every week. So yeah, you see us live talking about this stuff. Anyway, so I sort of introduced the subject in the start by talking about like a bit of a history of the whole substance unleashes creativity. So, I mean, people sort of backdate this to, I don't know, shamans or shamans, with Siberian shamans and Celtic, shamans and stuff like that, and the drug rituals they would have of burning certain substances, blah blah blah. Also, back in ancient Greece, you've got people drinking mead and standing over weird volcanic vents and saying the oracle speaking through them and all that kind of stuff. There's a long history of that, but really, the real origin of the whole unleashing creativity, I think, is, you're right, Druids. Celtic shamans are Druids. All right. But the real idea behind the whole unleashing creativity really starts in the late 18th century with Lord Byron and Shelley, people like that. That's where the idea really comes into popular culture. So you've got Lord Byron and Shelley being fantastic poets, and Mary Shelley creating her magnificent Frankenstein, Dracula. What was it called? Something like one of the Greek names.
The modern day Prometheus.
That's it, modern day Prometheus. There you are.
Yeah.
So creating that, and the idea is through there, taking laudanum, which is a tincture of opium that was popular back in the day. You can unleash all these creative thoughts and be sort of wild and natural and mad and get at kind of inner personal demons or whatever that normal people just are not privy to. So that's where that sort of really began, and that's carried on throughout the 19th century. I can't think of too many examples, like the pre-Raphaelites and their sort of substances, and later on you have what's his name, Arthur Conan Doyle, being addicted to various things and producing his fantastic stories, and of course his key character Sherlock Holmes is addicted to opium, things like that. I don't know, people turn it into like a heroin or whatever. I don't think he ever had that, but whatever. That's the whole association with creativity or being free with your thoughts has been very solidified. Of course, there's various other things like, drinking. We have famous writers like Bukowski, very famously. He is an amazing writer and poet. He used to drink a lot, and that was very much associated with his creativity. In the early 20th century, it became very associated with the music industry, with blues musicians and then jazz musicians taking, becoming very wealthy and taking various things in order not only to help them to create so much, but was more about to be able to exist within the horrible pressures and things that they find themselves within. So they drink a lot, of course, but then they take, heroin or smoking dope, I suppose, was one of the original things, because that came from, early slave culture. But so there's this taking heroin, there's taking cocaine, things like that, to have various effects in order to help people cope, to make people more energetic, so they can perform easily, to taking heroin to sort of come down after exciting performances. The idea is that when the British invasion happened, with all the English rock musicians, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, things like that, coming over to America, they got in touch with that kind of culture, those older musicians sort of, giving them those kind of substances in order to sort of help them along. And then in the 1960s, the whole idea of associating, like the idea of saying, oh, creativity actually comes from these things because these musicians took this stuff. And we have the Beatles producing Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. So, yeah, it's obviously means that drugs help them create it rather than, helping them just within their lives exist within, this bizarre music industry and, the fame and all that, which is more closely, more realistically what, the substance was before. But the thing is, taking substances can help people sort of break through in some ways. It can help you break through artist block. It can help you keep going when your ability is flagging, that kind of stuff. So there is a kind of relationship. It is overblown. It's massively overblown. And if you think, that smoking dope or, taking heroin or something like that is going to turn you into some Sid Vicious or some amazing, creative, clever writer, no, that's just going to turn you into an addict eventually. If you and you're going to be the opposite of creative. So it's not a straightforward relationship, basically, that people imagine. There are certain, like Tance can give you a better explanation of how this stuff can work, because you told us in the video portion. So I've already forgotten.
I thought you were going to say Tance can give you like some good stuff.
Yeah,
she can give you the best.
Like I was waiting in horror to see.
Yeah, it sounded like where you were going for a second. Like, if you really have to do it, buy it from Tance.
Yeah, Tance has a pretty good supply. You can trust her.
Yeah.
Well, if I ever did supply, I would make sure that it was reliably, available in good quality.
Only cut with the best drain cleaner, basically.
Exactly. Become the best in everything you try to be. But it's not in my plans for the future.
No, we do not advocate taking like illegal substances. Yeah. We'll just get that. We're talking about these substances, like referencing them, because that exists in culture. But we're absolutely not advocating that at all. That would just be, just stupid. Because it would mess up our our podcast.
Keeping to the legal stuff that is available, like the stuff that isn't considered controlled or as controlled, at least for adults. I would say that everything should be definitely done in moderation. Exercise your logic, your common logic. Stuff that might be a bit boring, but will keep you grounded. So the idea is, if you are taking a substance, you are taking it to achieve something, and usually it's either to be stimulated or to be inhibited. It's a binary thing. It's either or. So if you feel, usually people take coffee or they smoke cigarettes to be stimulated, to get that kick, and they give them more focus, give them at least the psychological impression that they are more able to concentrate and create, or generally do whatever it is that they're trying to do. And then you have also sometimes also alcohol can work that way, especially if we're talking about wine. Can work that way, but only if you have like one glass tops, half a glass. Because if you go above that, then it reverses the effect. It completely inhibits you, and you will become drunk. And then you continue, you will become basically a corpse. So don't do it. The idea is to just give yourself the message of what it is you are trying to do, and then let your organism take the wheel and do it without the aid of a substance.
Yeah.
If you can hit that sweet spot, then you are using a substance and you're not abusing it. So it's okay. It's up to you to do it. If you cannot feel like you answer this with your own self, never to others. But if you feel that you cannot exercise this, then it is best not to do it, because eventually it is going to harm you and your creativity, one way or the other. And it will kill your self-esteem as well, your confidence. You can do certain things on your own, and it's you, not the bottle, for example, or something else.
True, you can become overly reliant on these things, and as we said in the video portion, when you do become reliant on these things, you have to increase the dose in order for them still to work the same way, because your body becomes used to these things and then ratchets up the level. So we're not talking about illegal substances, although that does apply to them as well. But so wine, wine, coffee. You know, if you need stuff to go to get you there, seemingly the idea of like increasing energy and increasing like your ability to concentrate. So Red Bull as well. You know, anything can be a substance. Anything can be used. So yeah, Red Bull. Maybe it's tea for you. Maybe that's it. So if you become reliant on that to do the work, as Tant said, you know, you are imagining it's that doing the work and not you. And yeah, you keep on needing to increase the dosage, and then when you can't anymore, and that starts to have negative effects. Like say if you drink too much coffee, what happens there? Well, there's a whole bunch of things, like it's a diuretic, so you're needing to go to the toilet regularly. And that's breaking your concentration, that's breaking your creativity, because you have to keep pissing every half an hour. So if you keep having a massive amount of Red Bull and coffee, other things that happen, it delays...
It can ruin a QUACKCAST, too. So you're looking at me when you're saying that.
It delays your tiredness, which means... But it doesn't stop the tiredness. It just like what happens is the body like produces more of the hormones that make you tired in reaction to the coffee or the Red Bull you're taking that stops you being tired, or you know, amphetamines or Adderall or anything else that stops you being tired. The body like increases the level of those tiredness hormones, in reaction to it, which means it massively hits you, and the come down is enormous if you're like on, you know, super dosages of coffee or whatever else. So yeah, you crash, and that's no good for creation either, because that sort of just hits you suddenly. And the more you stay woken up, which, you know, when you're taking all the coffee or whatever else, the less you're able to concentrate. The mind starts to wander and it just starts to go crazy, and you can't concentrate. You can't be creative after that. So yeah, that's a bad thing. So you should.
You're also battling the loss of inhibition too, like with alcohol and stuff like that. Because, like I was saying before, when I first started working on Putrid Meat, a lot of those pages I did when I was drunk, and that was on purpose. Most of the time. I also drank a lot more back then than I do now. But the thing is, the problem with that was that when it worked great. It felt like it did. And, you know, I was having fun. I felt more open. I felt more free with it and stuff like that. But the problem with something that lessens your inhibition is that you also become distracted far more easily. So if you're not having that much fun, or say, for instance, you know, if I'm sitting and I'm drawing and I'm getting kind of drunk and a song comes on that I like, I'll probably start to pay more attention to that song, and then I'll look more for music. And then, like, before I know it, I've completely forgotten that I've sat down to do my comic and wasted a lot of time and gotten drunk with, you know, nothing to show for it except a damn good time. So it could be counterproductive in that way. It's like Tanj said, there's like this sweet spot to hit. Like, you know, you get to the edge and you don't go any further. And it's the thing with that is it's hard to know when you are at that perfect sweet spot. You feel it, but you still feel compelled to keep it going is the thing. You want to keep it going. So you start drinking way more or whatever you're doing. And that's when it becomes counterproductive.
It's hard to maintain it with wine. There was this excellent comedy skit that I've referenced a lot of the time on the Mitchell and Webb show. David Mitchell and Robert Webb, they do this excellent sitcom. Anyway, it's called Slightly More Than 2 Glasses of Wine. And that's the skit. And this guy finds that he's creative and he's like really like free and intelligent and wordy and witty if he has just over 2 glasses of wine. And he gets inducted into the secret society, and they secretly manage the world. And it's all this whole big table of people that only drink, you know, just over 2 glasses of wine, and that's all. And they manage everything. But the world turns to shit when one of them accidentally drinks 3 glasses of wine, and suddenly that's the end, and no one can maintain their focus anymore, and yeah, it's just everything gets fucked up. So yeah, that's a good point, Pit. It's hard to maintain the buzz with alcohol because it's dependent on your physiology and how fast your body's processing it, and your brain is messed up already when it's just a little bit buzzed, so you can't really evaluate that properly. So it's tricky. Yeah, it's hard. It's and the more you drink, the more your tolerance increases, so that makes it harder to gauge as well. So yeah, maybe it's,
and it becomes an excuse too.
15.
Like,
yeah,
you know, as we are already, as you start relying on it a bit too much, you know, it's the thing that works, it seems. And so if you start to figure, if I'm going to sit down and I want to get some work done, you know, why not sweeten the deal by having something that I think helps me, when in the end, after that stops working so much, it still kind of remains an excuse.
Yeah.
And, you know, it worked for me for a while to where I could still produce and drink at the same time, but I can't do it anymore. And it took me a long time to realize that I couldn't do that anymore. Like, that it wasn't working anymore. And like it only worked for a few years, maybe tops, but it wasn't until God, maybe 5-6 years after it stopped working that I started to have to kind of be real with myself. Like, all right, if I'm going to sit down and I'm going to drink all night, am I actually going to get anything done? No, I'm probably not, because I haven't for a long time, you know? So, I don't do that anymore. And that also coincides with that I just can't drink that much anymore, period, which also helps. But
well, you're actually creating better than you ever have, really. It's just
Yeah.
oh, thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah.
It's
everything has improved. So
I mean, you hear about this with a lot of metal bands from back in the day. Like, you know, like I was huge into Megadeth and stuff like that. And one of the talking points of Dave Mustaine's career, who's the lead singer and guitarist and the founder, you know, he used to be in Metallica and stuff. And he used to have this reputation of, you know, amazing guitarist and amazing songwriter. And he is. But he was really into, you know, the substance abuse and stuff like that. And once he cleaned up, people started questioning whether he was as good as he used to be.
oh,
And some of the fans, you know, because that was around the time that his music also started to change. And so people would be like, oh, well, was he better when he was fucked up? And I don't necessarily think that, but it's weird. It really is in rock and roll and heavy metal a lot that you could really see this kind of thinking at play, where in order to create, you need to be fucked up on something.
yeah, yeah. Which that's become a fan perception and not just the creator's perception. So, and say like with Aerosmith were a big band in the 1970s, and they got really into substance abuse, you know, massively into it. Steven Tyler and Joe Perry were, you know, big cocaine and heroin fiends and all that. And then they got clean in the late 80s, and their music style changed and everything. And, you know, they came back just as good as ever, really. Even better than ever. So, yeah, it can really depend, can't it? I don't know if there was any backlash of people with them and saying, you know, oh, they were better back when they were, you know, higher. I'm not sure. Though one thing, they were better in one way, in that Steven Tyler became really annoying. Hey, I'm sober now. I'm sober. Aren't I fantastic? I'm sober. And you think, oh, God, just shut up about that, man. Just there's no one more annoying than an ex-addict or an ex-smoker or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But on the other hand, though, I can understand why they would keep saying that they're sober, because it's so hard. It's a habit, like not a habit, an addiction. A habit is hard enough, but an addiction is even worse. So someone that does manage to do it and stay on the wagon, I can understand why they keep saying it and being annoying.
Well, it's something
That
to be
doesn't
proud
mean
of.
they are not annoying, but yeah, at least I can understand. It would be one of the annoyances that I would tolerate more than others, other people bragging about it, because it does take a lot of effort. So, and they might need the reassurance to keep going. So, yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, the whole bragging about it in any kind of this perspective on that is annoying. Like the whole thing. Oh, Keith Richards, look, he's taken everything under the sun, and look at him, he's still going. Nothing could kill him. Yeah, Keith Richards looks like he's about 90 years old. I've seen people who were born at the same bloody time as Keith Richards, and they look much younger. They're much more fitter and healthier, and they look fantastic. Keith looks like he's about to die, and he's not even that old, for goodness sake. You know, compared to other
How old
people.
is he, more or less?
He's probably in his 70s now,
Only
which is
70s.
used to be considered old in the old days, but these days, people live longer and are healthier, and yeah. Keith does not look well.
That harkens to the whole drug and alcohol abuse as even, or, participating, taking them and stuff like that as a cultural thing in a sense, or a subcultural thing. I mean, if you look at the punk scene, for instance, you have, people that would totally get trashed and stuff like that. Then you also have the other side of it, which is straight edge. And that became its own sort of cultural thing where, you have these people, these hardcore dudes that would go out and create music and stuff. And their whole thing was that they wouldn't, take anything, drugs or alcohol or whatnot. And, would still create. And it kind of created this clash in the counterculture, where the guys who were really into like booze and drugs and stuff like that had this, like, are you really that much better than we are? You still suck, while the straight edge guys would be like, fuck you, I mean McKay, so.
Oh, God.
But it's interesting, and for creators, and not just in the aspect that, does it help you or does it not, but also in the social circles that it puts you into.
Yeah.
The jazz guys, it wasn't just to help them cope, which was part of the thing, but it would also be in their inner circles a lot of time. And if you wanted to be a jazz musician, you wanted to fit in with this certain kind of idea that was going on, this projection. And so in order to do that better, you would want to, talk the talk and walk the walk and do all the things.
Yeah, to be part of the culture and to fit in. So, and the English musicians, they had the same thing, and then the American musicians that took over from that, it was you're exactly right there. That became part of the culture, and the same with artists as well. I can't speak for comic artists. I absolutely do not know any comic artists who are into whatever. I imagine a lot of them drink.
I wonder. Yeah, we don't know about it, right? Like sort of the classic.
No,
comic
not at
artists
all.
and stuff.
I imagine Rob Liefeld was probably into cocaine or whatever when he was in his heyday. I can't say anything like that. That's it's impugning the fellow.
I wonder. I'd be interested to know.
Yeah. I saw him once at Comic-Con. I should have asked him about his
I don't mean him specifically, but just in general, like your Walt Simonsons, who's still around and old, and
Neil Adams.
I think healthy, like Neil Adams, people who seems very together, but who knows? I mean, maybe part of it too with these rock musicians as well as these guys is like they're young. When they're young men and young women and stuff like that, you do have a different kind of lifestyle, and you're also young, so maybe your music is better for other reasons. I loved Alice Cooper and his old stuff.
And
but
Alice Cooper
I don't know,
was always straight edge.
No. He was hardcore. He was like
Really?
a heavy boozer and ended up in rehab.
Oh,
but
booze,
after he got clean, booze, and I think he did drugs. It was mostly booze. After he got clean, his stuff was not as good. But that might have more to do with other things than the booze, like the people he was playing with, and just age. And he's an awesome dude now, and he's like all clean and everything. I'm glad he's still alive. But,
well, I did love Poison when it came out, but when I listen to it now, it's one of the worst songs ever. So
yeah.
And that's his anti-drug song.
That was Clean Alice.
Yeah.
Clean Alice.
And the thing is too, though, you got to wonder if it is partly due to, these guys give up drugs and alcohol and stuff, because, there's tons of guys that you could cite that are like this, But at the same time, when people give up substances that are like that they depend upon, it's a lifestyle change in many ways. And usually by the time when they're giving up on those things, there are some other changes taking place anyways. You know, they're having kids or getting married and the older people get too, the more people tend to change, you know. But then I guess people can make like the argument like, you know, Lemmy was drinking and fucking and, you know, to the day he dropped dead and his music barely ever changed. Maybe a little bit, but it never really took this heel turn that you see with some other artists perhaps, but it's also untouchable. So no one's ever going to shit on Lemmy, you know, but there's a reason for that. So
he was one of the exceptions, you know. Keith Richards maybe is another. Like who will live? I mean, maybe their music not changing is connected to that lifestyle. It's possible, but just being hardy enough to stay alive and keep doing your thing. I mean, not everybody. Most people can't do that. They'll fall apart.
Well,
and there's also.
Go on, Tom.
I would just estimate. I mean, you would obviously need research to confirm something like that, but again, if you feel that your muse only comes when you're high, in any case, when you finally clean up for other reasons and stay clean, you might feel that you are disconnected from your muse. So that will inhibit your creative competence, let's say. So maybe there is some element about that. If they don't get support.
The placebo effect, basically.
Yeah. Sort of like Dumbo with the magic feather.
Yeah, it's a magic talisman. But
Stay Clean is a good Motorhead song, by the way.
There's a equation for creativity. It's a very simple equation. It's age plus experience, and the other factor is age plus experience plus enthusiasm. So as you age, the enthusiasm of youth wanes, but the experience increases. And those are the factors that control creativity. The more experienced you are, the more able and apt you are to be able to produce things, but the less you want to produce them because you're losing that enthusiasm of youth that's a product of not being experienced and not knowing things.
Things are less new. You know, the more experience you get with something, the less new it is and the less you think outside the box. Whereas I think it kind of comes out the other way, though. I think if you gain so much experience in something for so long, eventually you do just kind of start to break the barriers of the box because your mind can only take so much fatigue or something, or you become to know something so much that you're able to see it through different lights and stuff like that. So experience and also having different experiences, like you can gain a lot of experience doing something in particular, right? But if you still go out and have new experiences fairly often, you're going to have more input to put into that other experience.
Yes.
I'm becoming I'm becoming a little too abstract right now. It's hard to, but yeah. So, and maybe in a way that applies to taking substances to get creativity, you know, I think you could probably fatigue just as much. Like, you know, if you drink a lot or if you drink whenever you create something, and I fall back on the drinking thing because that was my thing. So that's the thing I relate to. But see, what I would do was I would sit in my chair in front of the TV and either put on a movie that I really liked that kind of jived with my style or inspired me to do the putrid meat kind of thing, or put on some music that really got me going. I would drink a bit and then I would start to draw. But if I do that constantly, if I do that a certain number of times, it's going to lose its impact just because it stagnates. And so then maybe you know, if you still want to like drink or whatever while you create, maybe try, I don't know, going and drawing somewhere you haven't drawn before or something. The thing that's difficult with that, though, is you're changing your environment. And therefore, since you're, like I was saying before, you have looser inhibitions, it's easier to become distracted. So that's the dangerous thing. So I don't know. You want to keep it fresh, but you also don't want to become distracted for a time and then come back to your shit. So I guess, I don't know. I was just following this chain of thought that wasn't going anywhere.
Right, so
that does make sense. Yeah, you have to go out and experience
that's a good
stuff.
one. And I've just thought of another. Oh yeah, Baines, sorry.
It's all right. I was just paraphrasing what Pitt said. So
well, I just thought of another very creative person was famous for that. Burroughs, of course. You know, the guy who created
Taxi and stuff.
Tarzan.
And different Burroughs.
Yeah, John Carter on Mars, all that kind of stuff. He was famously played by the RoboCop guy, Peter Weller, I think. It's Peter Weller? In Naked Lunch. You know, he shot his wife when he was high by accident. Shot her and killed her. Yeah, so he was very famous for taking substances. But okay, so one of the ideas behind taking substances in order to create it is that it alters the perception. So that's sort of what people's getting at, in that, you know, it can sort of change the way you think or whatever. But okay, so this is the classic, you know, idea of why substances are tied to creativity. Because you see the world in a certain way, you know, with all your senses, your brain interprets things in a certain standard way, as brain should with reality. So certain substances will alter those perceptions and make you see the world in a different way, and maybe think about the world in a different way. And a lot of people think that's how, you know, you're tied to creativity with this kind of stuff, which is, I mean, that's not true. There's no essential, you know, creativity inherent in seeing the world in a different way. That, again, it always does come from you. And like what Pitt says is accurate, in that you could get creativity from that just because you had an experience, you had a different experience. You can get creativity, you know, by taking that away from it. But, all right, literally what drugs, any substance tends to do to the brain or the senses is that they mess it up. Basically, the brain and the senses have evolved over millions of years in order to be able to discern reality very well. And that's what they do in order to help you as an organism survive in three-dimensional space without being killed. And that's what they do. What these recreational substances do is they mess up various functions of that. They don't tie you to a greater reality or, you know, open your perceptions or anything. They turn off routines and functions in the brain, and that sort of mess up your reality checking and things like that. So, like, in a simple way, like alcohol will make you less inhibited. That will, like, mess up your balance, make you feel warmer, all that kind of stuff. Just because of the slight physiological changes it does and the poisoning in your system. But in doing so, that will give you an altered experience, which you would not have normally because your brain is, you know, sober and it's doing its reality checking and it's working properly. So, yeah, in that kind of aspect, it can give you, more avenues of creativity because normally your brain isn't messed up. So there's that. But yeah, I just wanted to explain that there's a myth that you get, like, often you'll get people say, oh, I smoke dope and suddenly I realized that we're all one and we're like, no, that's a side effect of certain changes in the brain that can be achieved in any way. It can be achieved through electrical stimulation or magnetic stimulation in certain parts of the brain, and it's not caused by you actually realizing we're all one and seeing the greater whole. That's just turning off certain, like, checking and reality checking features in the brain that separate you, that make you realize that you're an individual, and these things like turn off these essential functions in the brain. So yeah, you imagine that we're all connected, but it's not actually connecting you with like a deeper reality. It's just destroying a normal function of the brain that you need in order to help you survive as an individual. So yeah, I just keep coming back at even though that isn't like a spiritual experience like you imagine it is. It's a simple.
This is the worst 420 ever.
Even though it isn't a spiritual experience, it is an experience, and that is valuable because all experience is valuable. So yeah. I'm sorry for being a buzzkill that way, but I'm not.
That's hilarious.
Totally being a buzzkill. Yeah. I'm a dick.
No, man. No.
He's tripping on dictaphan.
It's all it. It's the mead. I drank the rest of my honey mead. Okay, so there we are. That's what mead does to you.
And I mean, I guess that's the thing that it's. I think in this cast we kind of tiptoe around telling people, yes, do this or don't do this, because it's up to the individual and stuff like that. I know for myself, I prefer not to have anything inhibiting my senses because I enjoy the way that I see reality, and I feel that I'm able to see it in different ways that allows me to take creative inspiration. Well, for other people, maybe it's not that way. I can't put myself in their shoes. You know what I mean? And so while I'm not going to sit here and advocate, go and get messed up on something, which it doesn't always have to be messed up either. As we were saying that even coffee can, I drink a fair share of coffee, so maybe that's my thing. But I guess, what am I trying to say?
Well, what we're trying to say, I think, what you're trying to say is we're not being prescriptive to people. We're not saying, absolutely don't do things. Make up your own minds.
Yeah, it's hard not to say. We're trying not to say that. While I think at the same time, maybe keeping ourselves talking about certain things. I don't know. Never mind.
I think
exactly what you're talking about.
I think actually at least what I would get from what you're saying is that everyone has their own experience and reality that is very personal to them. So using one's own experience, which is also unique to judge the other, would be a wrong thing to do, a wrong approach. I also don't like to be drunk or high or anything when I'm creating things, no matter what these things are. I feel I am generally a control freak as much as possible. So I would feel that I have lost control of my senses. So it would actually make me more stressed if I were high on anything. I wouldn't like it. There was this one instance, actually, I haven't ever been, completely lost in my life, not because I haven't tried, but because as I was getting to that point, I felt I was losing more and more control on reality, and I really didn't like it, so I stopped. It doesn't actually have to do with all, and just that the relationship that I have with the world is one of very deep distrust. So I really want to be able to say what's happening around me. And therefore, I cannot be, completely messed up, completely, I don't know, whatever expression comes to mind. I can't do that. Other people react to what they need or the world around them or whatever it is that such a situation offers them differently. So they might be seeking it for one reason or another. I think the thing that everyone has to answer for themselves on their own and not for someone else is what this mental state offers you, and does it offer you what you think it is offering? And if the answer is yes, then you do you. I mean, you're happy, and that's the point.
Yes. You do you.
Yeah.
Don't break any laws and don't hurt yourself.
And I think this is what I was getting at, is that having a conversation about drugs and creativity, it almost inherently comes with this ethical discussion. I think is what I was trying to get at. It's like, as much as we try to steer away from it, it keeps on kind of popping up in our conversation. And then I think we get afraid of turning into like a Dare commercial or something like that. Because that's not like what people are here to listen to, But at the same time, it is interesting that in order to talk about drugs, even as we're talking about them now as a creative tool, they inherently come with this kind of social baggage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's something that we did not touch on. We're pretty much out of time now.
Well, it doesn't really have that much time to do with what we're talking about, but I'm just saying, even though we're not talking about that part of it, we're still edging on it. And anyway, it's just, never mind.
That's a massively important part of it. Damn it.
Yes.
If we are going to touch on that, I think we need to be ready to do so, because there's going to be a lot of standing on podiums and stuff. I mean, and I'm talking about me, especially where I am with some people in my life right now. It's a bit of a difficult situation. A lot of people are affected by this, so I don't think that if we do go into this ethical sort of conversation about it, I think we need to be more prepared.
Oh yeah, and that's another thing. It's again the approach that we're using to the subject, because if we do want to go into ethics, then definitely there are going to be some very strong opinions on all of our behalf, and then you will have value judgments.
Right.
So if we are prepared to do value judgments, then what we're going to be doing. Maybe we should put the question to the audience, like, do you want us to do value judgments on this?
No, I would. That would be something I would prefer to step out of, and not to mention, I don't see how doing something on value judgments like this connects very much with the QUACKCAST, maybe on a different platform. But I'd like to see us go more into the realm of creativity and what people do in order to become creative, even outside of drugs. So maybe that's what we can do in the future. Or you guys are free to do it. I just probably won't be a part of the conversation.
What? All right.
No. I mean, if you do the ethical.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. All right. Well, that's a topic.
Well, the other topic also is very interesting. So I would be absolutely for it either way.
Creativity is a fantastic subject. Very big, very round. All right. Thank you very much for being part of the QUACKCAST. People, it's been marvelous. All right.
It has. Let me just say that when Pitt said might turn into a Dare commercial, I thought of cookies right away. So that's another.
Oh, now I'd like some cookies. You've truly
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I need to play. Yeah.
American addiction to consumerism.
Baines,
Exactly.
you are the
Use those substances.
You are the pot
Yeah.
of the QUACKCAST. You're making everybody want munchies now.
I just
That's
can't
right.
quit you.
Marijuana Baines. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
He is Canadian.
It's true.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.